Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Forum YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Mike Beer, and we're going to preview graded stakes race coming up for you this weekend out at Oaklawn Park in the Essex. Oaklawn will have their big stop on the road to the Derby, I think, next weekend, Mike. This weekend, it'll be all about fairgrounds and Turfway trying to get the Kentucky Derby and Oaks points. And we have a really cool promotion right now, the Road to the Derby package. If you want to go and purchase this right now, you'll save a ton of money because you can get past performances for all of the big Road to the Derby events this weekend. Jeff Ruby Stakes Day, Louisiana Derby Day. Next weekend, I think it's Gulfstream Park with Florida Derby Day, and Oaklawn has Arkansas Derby. So we're in that time of the year, Mike, where it's each weekend we have a couple big preps still to go, and you get all those PPs, Clocker reports at Gulfstream, Santa Anita, and even PPs for the Oaks and the Derby.
A lot of work still to be done for the Derby, Gino, and the big preps are just on the way in the next couple of weeks. You might as well get this package, get it at a discount, and get started.
So we're going to look at the Essex, the Grade 3 Essex this weekend. It's going to be on Saturday over at Oaklawn Park. It's going to go as race number 10 on Saturday, mile and an eighth, main track. We do know, Mike, reporting Brad Free and Marcus Hirsch have let us know that Maycox Bay should be running on Saturday in the New Orleans at Fairgrounds, which is interesting because he would have been a major player in there. You and I actually previewed the New Orleans. If anyone else wants to take a look at that preview right here on the YouTube channel, he's not as big of a player in that race as he would have been in this particular race.
Yeah, that's just a tougher race overall. But listen, Maycox Bay and Kinetic, who's the 5 in this race, they're both owned by Godolphin, and they were both, they were each entered in these two races. So you knew one was going to run in one of them, and the other was going to run here. And it seems like this is the spot that they've chosen for Kinetic.
Yep. So field of 6 now we'll be really talking about with Maycox Bay. It's going to likely to scratch out of this one. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector, see how they think this one will unfold early on. And no surprise to see Patriot Spirit up front. He has actually gone a mile and an eighth previously and won in the Illinois Derby last year. And we saw him last time out set the pace fade in the 5th season, which is a stepping stone to this race, and then will lead into the Oaklawn Handicap. So, I mean, his best chances of winning this race, Mike, are if he's able to clear this field.
Yeah, we'll see. Listen, he's still got something to prove as far as distance goes, even though he did win the Illinois Derby. He's a speed. The 3 is a speed. There's one deep closer in this race, Gino. That's the one Red Route Run. And he's got a stablemate in here in the number 7 Unload. So don't be surprised if Unload isn't just on a mission here to set a pace for his stablemate.
Yeah, I think in a small field, it'll be really interesting to see because we can start right now looking at the number 1, Red Route 1. And with him, Mike, you know what you're going to get with him. He is a horse who wants to drop back. He's going to make one late run. Anything shorter than a mile and an eighth is too short for him. Like, this is his bread and butter. It's funny. I feel like he's older than a 5-year-old too, right? Feels like he's been around for even longer than that, but he's not coming into this race necessarily in the best form, but he does have one of the higher ceilings in this race. He has, I think, a 101 buyer, and he's hit the 100 buyer mark a couple times. So if a few of these horses are kind of going at each other, in particular the 7 to the outside, it might be able to set up for him. My concern would just be, does he get outrun a little bit and maybe distance too much in a small field early?
Always the major issue with a horse like him. He just doesn't have any speed at all. So going into things that he's going to have to pass the entire field. If he's going to win here, again, I do think the 7 is probably in this race to make sure that the pace goes for him, and that will help Gino. We'll see if it sets up well enough. He's clearly good enough to beat this field, but trip is more important to him than it is to anyone else.
Yeah, and you can go through his last couple races and make the excuses for him and say, okay, the last race, it was a merry-go-round kind of race. The top 3 were basically 1, 2, 3. 2 starts back, he's on a muddy track, so that doesn't really play very well to him. 3 starts back, he's facing a lot tougher with Rattle and Roll and Hit Show. So, I mean, you can go through those races and make excuses. It comes down to pace. It comes down to price, too, right? You got to make sure you get a good price on him because he's going to be launching from out of it. Maycox Bay will be running at Fairgrounds. If you want the preview of the New Orleans Classic, Mike and I actually previewed that race. You can go and check it out right there, led by Sierra Leone and also Hall of Fame, going to be a couple of the major players in there. Let's talk more about the 3 now. Mike Tarantino, we know he's going to be running in this race. He was actually entered in that New Orleans Classic also. he's been in really nice form as of late. Very honest. He's kind of stepped up for the Urton Barn. They claimed this horse for 40, and since claiming a win, stepped him up against optional 80s, win, and then in 3 straight graded stakes races, he's hit the board, but he just wants to be in it. He battles, and I'm worried about him battling with 1 or 2 other horses in here.
Yeah, I have the same concerns. I mean, I do think this is the better spot to run this horse, and even with, you know, the expected perhaps faster pace in this race. We'll see how it all plays out, but he is in good form right now. He wants to be forward, so we'll just see if he can find a way to work out the right trip in this race. I don't particularly like him that much in here, Gino, but I'm not going to knock the form or the job that Peter Urton's done with this horse. They've gotten this horse good.
Completely agree on like everything you said. I don't love him, and I don't probably don't bet him at a shorter price. This is a way better spot though. He's a lot more logical in here, and he's just been in good form. So you have to tip your cap to how honest he's been lately. I could see another minor award for him battling it out early and then kind of hanging around for like a 3rd or 4th bottom of the exotics type effort. Patriot Spirit we saw on the front end of the Timeform US pace projector, so he should be up front, but he'll now try to go a little bit farther. And as you were pointing out, when he did win that mile in an 8th race, it was against a softer group. This is a tougher group and some seasoned older horses in here, and he should have some company up front also.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll just see how he handles it. This is his most recent racer. You mentioned the local prep race for this Essex, and you know, listen, he runs well in here, Gino. He did make a clear early lead in this spot, and he's dead game in this race.
He's trying hard
for second. And I think it's at least worth pointing out. I mean, I realize the horse that out finishes him here at the end, the Wine Steward, he's off a layoff in this race, in that race right there. But he's a good horse, and he has a chance to be a real player as a 4-year-old as this season goes on. The horse that finished 3rd in that race, Liberal Arts, he's also a really nice horse. So, I mean, that form is actually pretty good. This horse, I think, anyway, pretty clearly just ran the best race of his life in the 5th season. We'll see if he can back it up.
Kinetic is going to be running in this race, another one who was cross-entered here and at Fairgrounds. And you can understand for him running here, it makes a whole lot of sense because he's the horse to beat, most likely. You go through his career, Mike, he really hasn't done a whole lot wrong. And when you watch his races too, he's still a little green and kind of lugging in and all over the place. Yeah. If they can just get that straightened out a little bit, he probably has another step forward too. And, you know, we'll watch right here. He strikes the front as a heavy favorite. He's the one in the replay that we're watching. And then as soon as he kind of hits the front, he's going to take zig in big time here. And he's kind of going back and forth a little bit. But even after this and kind of, you know, spotting some of the rest of the field, some efficiency late, he kind of opens back up again. He's almost playing with them.
Yeah, he seems like he's toying with these horses a little bit. He was never going to lose to them. He just didn't really want to, you know, sort of put his head down and finish the job there. He's got to clean that up because that's not the only time that he's done that in his career. I would say, though, if you go 3 starts back to that allowance race at Churchill, and that's going the 9 furlongs as well. If you want to see him sort of get down to serious business, he sort of did it in that race. He got a good trip. When he hit the front, he changed leads right on time in that race, and he just went on with it with a really good finish. So you know that he's got it in him, Gino. This horse, to me, is pretty talented. I was interested in him in the tougher race at Fairgrounds on Saturday, but
playable price.
They clearly made the right decision here. I mean, he's the horse to beat.
Yeah, he's not really playable here, but what I think you pointed out something that's really important. We've seen him do that, right? Because some horses are so quirky that they just are never going to figure that out, right? They're always going to be those types of horses, but we've actually seen him kind of put it all together. So if they can figure that out and just get that back and get his mind right, because he's still winning races even when he's green, he could take that another step forward and be a pretty interesting older horse in here in this division this year. As we move to a couple long shots to the outside here, Mike, speed bias. You know, he's capable of big efforts. We've seen him throw up 100+ Beyer speed figure, but he hasn't really been at his best the last 6-7 races or so. It's just been a while since we've seen a top tier effort from him.
Yeah, I just don't like his recent form enough to want to consider him even at a big price in this race. I realize, he's got speed too, Gino, and that big triple-digit Beyer effort you were mentioning from a couple of summers ago down at Pimlico came when he was on the lead, but he's capable of sitting just off the pace as well. So I can see him getting the right trip in this race. I just don't like the form that he's in.
And then on the outside, Unload is hard to see on the win end off of his recent form, but you were kind of hitting on something important. He could be a real nuisance in this race for the other pace players and just try to help set it up for Red Route 1.
Yeah, I mean, listen, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe Asmussen just really likes him and wants to run him in this race. I just sort of looked at him as a horse who's in here to provide pace for his stablemate. We'll see how that all plays out. This is a horse he's actually got some ability, I think. And Asmussen's one guy you can count on to usually just find the right spots for horses like this. I suspect this horse will have a couple of nice wins down the line.
So as we finish up with this race, we move to selections here. Mike, you were talking about how Kinetic was more playable if he would have run in Fairgrounds in the New Orleans Classic. But here, he's certainly a lot more logical and probably the horse to beat.
Yeah, I think this is a good spot for him. I'm not going to try to beat him in this race. I do think he's actually pretty good. I'm interested to see if he can sort of take that step forward. If not here, maybe in the next start or two.
Yeah, we have the same top two. I thought if you can get like 8-1 or above on Red Route 1, that probably is playable in this race because we know how good he can be with the right type of trip and with the Asmussen horse to the outside and maybe 2 other speeds in here. I like when there's more than 2 speeds, 3, being because then you can feel confident that at least 2 of them might show up. So yeah, if I got like 8-1 or above, I might put a few bucks on Red Route 1 because we know what his A game really could be. So however you play him this week and in the Essex, we wish you the best of luck.